Welcome to another episode of Science Made Simple. I'm Miss Devina and I'm a secondary science specialist here at the Pique Lab. In this video, I'll be analysing a past year exam question. I've also prepared this question for you to download for free by clicking a link in the description box below. So let's get started. Let us take a look at this question together. The question asks us to name a most suitable apparatus that can be used to measure all these physical quantities over here. So looking at the first two physical quantities, they want us to measure 8.9 cm cube of solution and 25.0 cm cube of solution. Based on the first two, can you tell me what physical quantity they are measuring? They are measuring the volume of a solution. Moving on to part C, they ask us to find the most suitable apparatus used to measure the boiling point of water. So what physical quantity is this? They are measuring the temperature. Moving on to part D, they want us to find an apparatus used to measure the time taken for a reaction to take place. So the physical quantity here is simply just time. Now that we have all the different physical quantities, let me give you a summary as to the different apparatus that we can use to measure all these different physical quantities. Let us take a look at volume, temperature, as well as time. Let us start with volume first. There are four main apparatus that we can use to measure the volume of a liquid. The first apparatus is called the burette. The second apparatus is called the pipette. The third apparatus is known as the measuring cylinder. And the very last apparatus is our beaker. What is the difference between all these apparatus? Let's take a look at our burette first. So over here, our burette, we know that it is used to accurately measure volumes of solutions. How about our pipette? Our pipette is also used to accurately measure the volume of solutions. With that being said, then what is the difference between the burette and the pipette? Well, one important thing to note about our pipette is that it is used to measure fixed volumes of liquids. And these fixed volumes of liquids come in intervals of 5. For example, we can use our pipette to measure volumes such as 10.0 cm cube and 25.0 cm cube. Now, what if I have a volume that is 11.3 cm cube? Can I use my pipette to measure this volume? No, I cannot use my pipette to measure this volume. Why? Because the pipette can only measure fixed volumes in intervals of 5. Then what can I use to measure 11.3 cm cube of solution? I can use my burette. So for my pipette, I only use it to measure fixed volumes of intervals of 5. And for the other volumes of solutions, I will use my burette. Now moving on to the third apparatus, we have our measuring cylinder. Our measuring cylinder over here can also accurately measure volumes of solution. However, if I compare my measuring cylinder to my pipette and my burette, I will say that the pipette and the burette is more accurate in measuring volumes of solutions. Now what about my beaker? Can it accurately measure the volumes of solutions? No, it can only measure approximate volumes of solutions. And majority of the time, the beaker is often only used to hold liquids. So these are the apparatus used to measure the volume of solution. Moving on to temperature. What apparatus can we use to measure the temperature? We use the thermometer. There are two common types of thermometers that we use. One is called the mercury thermometer, and the other is called the alcohol thermometer. Now moving on to the last and final physical quantity here, we have time. And oftentimes when we want to measure time, we will use a stopwatch. Again, for the stopwatch, there are two common types of stopwatches. The first one is called the digital stopwatch, and the second type is the mechanical stopwatch. And the difference between the digital and the mechanical stopwatch is that my digital stopwatch can measure up to 1/100th of a second. So it can measure minutes, seconds, and up to 100th of a second. Compared to my mechanical stopwatch, which only measures minutes and seconds. Now with all of this in mind, let us take a look at our options A, B, C, and D. So over here, option A, we want to measure 8.9 cm cube of solution. Based on this, which apparatus would I choose? The most suitable apparatus would be the burette. Now, why don't I use the pipette? Because the pipette is only used to measure fixed volumes of liquids that have intervals of 5. Why don't I use the measuring cylinder? Because if I have my burette and my measuring cylinder, I would choose my burette because it is more accurate than my measuring cylinder. Moving on to B, they want us to find an apparatus used to measure 25.0 cm cube of solution. Which apparatus can I use? We see that this is a fixed volume and it's also an interval of 5, so we use the pipette. Moving on to part C, what can we use to measure the boiling point of water? We can use the thermometer. However, if you take a look at part C, they specified the boiling point of water. What is the boiling point of water? It is 100 degrees Celsius. And if we want to measure the boiling point of water, we have to specify that we use the mercury thermometer. And why is that so? It is because if you take a look at the alcohol thermometer, the alcohol inside has a boiling point of 78. And if you take a look at mercury, the boiling point of mercury is 356.7 degrees Celsius. And finally, part D, what apparatus can we use to measure the time taken for a reaction? We can use our stopwatch. And for part D, you can simply just put stopwatch. However, if you want to specify whether it is a digital or mechanical stopwatch, you can still put that as your option. So to measure 8.9 cm cube of solution, we use our burette. To measure 25.0 cm cube of solution, we use a pipette. To measure the boiling point of water, we use the mercury thermometer. And to measure the time taken for a reaction to take place, we use our stopwatch. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Found this video useful? Give us a thumbs up and check out more by clicking the links here. You can also subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. Until next time, stay curious inside and limitless outside. Bye!